Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is how to build a better mini bike. The first thing I'm going to be doing is revisiting one of my previously built OMB warehouse Predator 212s. This one is a non-hemi. Currently, it has champion rockers, stock retainers, 22-pound springs, an ARC flywheel, 265 cam, stock billet rod, and a hemi piston. We're going to be looking to rework this head. So I'm going to get it off and take it down to the bare unit itself. Next, I'm going to be giving this head a light porting. I'm going to be after any of the sharp edges. You can see where my valve guides are. That's where the stem feeds through. There's a step to the left on the intake valve and to the right out of the exhaust. We're going to smooth those out. We're going to smooth the edges where the bowls meet the intake and exhaust port. And there's also a little edge right here that we'll be cleaning up and making that smooth. Then I'll sand out my bowls the best I can. After that, I'm going to go for a short radius. These have a rough edge, so anything passing over this, right, could be restricted or see some sort of disturbance that it doesn't have to see. On the intake side, that'll help our flow, as well as on the exhaust side. So things are coming and going as freely as they possibly can. I'm going to be very, very careful for my valve seats. We'll be lapping some valves in, but lapping them will not save you if you gouge them. I'm all done with my port work. Now I'm going to grab some sandpaper and clean this thing up to the best of me and my sausage finger's ability. We'll take a better look when I'm done with that. Here we are, ported and sanded. I smoothed out my bowls, opened up my short radius, and cleaned up all of my transitions. Did the same thing over on the exhaust side. There's the intake. There's the exhaust. That is going to help our flow. Next, we're going to address compression. I think I already mentioned that this non-hemi has a Hemi flat top piston. That piston is connected to a stock billet rod, and at top dead center we're still leaving something before we get to the deck. With the fan shroud off, a few of my feeler gauges out, flywheel exposed, I'm at top dead center. When I come up to my cylinder wall, I'm just about flush right here. I'm ever so heavy. This is 30 thousandths. So, we're probably 28, 29 in the hole. Right around there. We can pick up compression just by lifting that piston flat with the deck. That's where this little bad boy comes into play. This is a 570 comp height piston. This piston, well, it's a little bit different than the one that's in there. We'll get it out and take a look. The easiest way to explain this, well, the Hemi piston that we previously had installed had a 550 piston height. The NR Racing is a 570. That gives us an additional 20 thousandths. This is what 20 thousandths looks like. It might not seem like a whole lot, but you spread that over the entire surface area of the piston and add that towards the deck. That's going to help in building compression. Remember that head I was working on? Well, I sent that down to the machine shop, and I had 35 thousandths removed from the gasket surface. If we add that to our 20 thousandths, we've taken out 55. I just looked around for a feeler gauge that was 55 thousandths, and I don't have one. So, to save time, I have a 30 thousandths and a 25 thousandths stacked up next to each other. That is the total amount of surface area that we've recovered in milling this head and bringing up our piston height. So if I'm trying to achieve 30 thousandths from the top of my piston to this surface, I'm 25 thousandths in the hole. I'm going to add the stock head gasket. This is 10 thousandths. That's going to put us at 35 thousandths. So here's the flex. That's what we're trying to make up for. We're in the cylinder. We're adding our gasket. We're in the safety zone. That's using the stock head gasket. If we were to go to the +2 rod and the 570 piston, probably going to need a thicker gasket. So, even though it can be done, we're going to consider this the safer method. As for the milling that was done on the head in the valve clearance, so that your valves don't hit the piston, at 35 thousandths, that isn't a whole lot. You can take up to 50 thousandths. In extreme cases, I've been told 80 thousandths. So, where we've already gained our 55 thousandths, that's gonna boost us into something like a 10-to-1 compression ratio or better, we're going to call this good. To make this stronger, we're going to add some stainless steel valves. Stainless steel valves are in. I'm using the stock retainers and keeps. These are steel versus the aluminum billet retainers that you can buy. The reason we're using these, well, we're running 22-pound springs. This is going to be on a big tire torque converter bike. It's heavy, and I want this thing to rev fast, and I don't want it to fall apart. I'm not too worried about saving weight as much as I am durability. So, with the compression that we've added, the extra flow, the 22-pound springs, stainless steel valves, we should be ready to rock and roll. I have a stock head gasket, my stock rods. I'm going to get this on. I get the head on, a little bit of red Loctite on the end of my bolts, 18 foot-pounds. Now, I'm going to add my champion rockers, just like in the slideshow. My rockers are on, I'm lashed out, and everything is doing what it's supposed to do. Nothing's binding up, everything's free spinning. Due to the nature of this installation, the adjusters on the rockers are slightly more protruded out towards the valve cover. So when I do the champion rockers, I do a billet extension anyway. But this really goes to show why that's so important. If push rods were more readily available right now, I would order a pair slightly shorter than the 5.2s that are in this right now. I'm going to go ahead and get my extension and my valve cover back on. I'll lube up my rockers just before I shut it up. With everything closed up and doing what it's supposed to do, we're going to move on to the spark plug. This plug has been indexed and side gapped. I'm not going to show you how to do it, but I'm going to leave a link in the description. Since I'm setting this coil gap for an ARC flywheel, I use 2 business cards. I also went ahead and shortened my spark plug cable and upgraded to an NGK cap. I just cleaned up all my old sheet metal, my coil starter. I'm going to put that on next. This thing's starting to look classy real quick. All the sheet metal, fan shroud, it's all on. I don't have the kill switch hooked up because there is a remote one on the bike. I'm probably going to bolt it to it when we test fire this thing. Up next, we have a filter here and a carburetor. Let me see what I got. Alright. She's got a coon on her, boys. This one is a VM22. NR Racing from OMBwarehouse.com, where I have bigger valves. The way this is ported, I think this carburetor is going to work a lot better on this engine than it did on the other ones. A couple new Filtowskis, and we're almost there. I just decided that I'm not going to put a gas tank on this motor. I'm going to run it satellite for now. I have a spare. We're going to use it. I'm also going to be using the cable that was attached to this motor and is still affixed to the mini bike. Oh, I guess we can't. Or can we? Did it. Did it. Did it. Oh yeah. You know we're gonna shark this thing. I'm gonna get the motor on the bike first though. I got the Mikuni linkage on. The throttle is hooked up. I also hooked up the fuel line, a shutoff, and the 3x8 spun aluminum tank. This package from my friends at OMB Warehouse contains the proper exhaust for this mini bike. Let's check it out. This exhaust system is designed for the Coleman RB200, but it also fits the Mega Moto MM212 Pro that we'll be working with today. When you pick this header up, You can feel the weight, and you can see from both ends that it has nice thick walls to it, which is important because it does make a pretty sharp turn. If this were a lesser pipe, this would get pretty thin in this area. It's also inlaid into the flange and welded all the way around. Structurally, this is nice. It comes with this ring clamp. This one would be for a wire to hold on the Mini 91 if it were to fall off. If ours falls off, we'll probably just weld it on. It probably won't fall off though, because these 1-inch stainless RLV clamps hold on pretty tight. This came as part of the kit as well as this gasket. Here's what it looks like, completely installed with the Mini 91 and everything. I really like the way it comes up, over, and behind. It's away from my intake enough where I don't see it being an issue. With this filter, I have it turned back. We can also loosen this up and turn it down a little bit and get the foam a little bit further away, if that's even an issue. I'm probably going to shorten up my fuel line, so I left that zip tie there for now. Other than that, this is the FBC power horn. That spline right there, we might add one to this exhaust as well. We'll see how it does for vibration and such, but if it's an issue, that's exactly how I'm going to fix it. Get a little fresh gas in there. I rerouted my fuel line so I have a direct shot straight to the carburetor. Oh yeah. Look at that flow. Well, I guess the last thing to do is fire it up, see if it runs. Uneventful. Apparently, the idle's not too bad. I'm just free spinning. I don't have a or anything on this right now. I can see my spacers are about to fly off the other side though. About 40 degrees this morning. We're blessed with a good one. Saw some gas come out of the overflow. Take a look at that. This is what it sounds like without the Mini 91 on it. That oil that was making the smoke before, that's going to clear out. That's from the assembly when I lube the head. Alright, so we definitely have a runner, and it might actually run a little too well for this frame. When I was revving it and bringing it back down to an idle, you probably noticed it doing some of this. Well, believe it or not, this engine plate is already reinforced. It has angle iron welded to the frame and on the bottom of the plate. On this side, on the rear, under the jack shaft, and the entirety of the long side of the plate. Well, we're going to have to add some more. While we're down here, I'm also going to have to make an adjustment to this right here. This carburetor is entirely too close to my chain and my sprocket. It's not touching, and the adjuster screw is probably the closest thing, but if that chain breaks, our carburetor bowl is right in the way. We're going to have to fix that. Another thing that I'm going to have to address due to the violent nature of this motor is the exhaust. We're going to weld a spline in and see what we can do about keeping the Mini 91 where it's supposed to be. We're going to go through these repairs and other common issues for this mini bike one by one. I'll keep them coming, guys, because as always, it's a work in progress. Have a good night. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.